Welcome to the Rookies Podcast, where we are three rookie pastors who come on, talk about all that we know about ministry, which is not a whole lot. And sometimes we bring in experts to help us in our ministries. My name is Rio Taylor, and today I'm joined by Colin Coffey and Daniel Razor, and we have a special guest named Vick Green from Replicate. Before we get to Vic, though, Colin, you've got a life update because not only did you get a new job, you've got baby number 4 coming.
Yeah. Baby number 4 comes in July, and I just switched jobs to work in the president's office at Midwestern. So excited to learn that and be able to serve Dr. Allen. But uh, yeah, nothing huge. But I have to move my books home. I don't have many shelves where I'm headed.
You're also going to wear suits and ties every day now.
That's true. I gotta keep up with the decorum of the office I'm in. So need to follow the standard that Dr. Allen set.
Well, when Vic hopped on, he made a joke that 3 years ago, all three of us were at a training with Replicate, and the only person still at the same church is Daniel.
That's
So,
right.
Daniel, you're still at Faith, right?
Yep. Still here, coming up on finishing year 4, and hopefully many more to come.
Yeah.
Okay, and
Praise
then
God.
Yeah.
and on my end, this episode will be released Tuesday. So on Sunday, I will have announced that I am leaving my current church at FBC Grayson, and I've accepted a position at a different church here in Kentucky to be their teaching pastor, but they have not announced yet, so I cannot announce until they do. But with that being said, you're caught up to speed. That's why we haven't released an episode in what seems like forever, because we've all been insanely busy. Colin more so than anybody else, because look at how, if you're on YouTube, look how professional he looks.
That's right.
Just look at him.
It's just a tie. Don't get excited.
But anyway, well, today we are excited to welcome on Vick Green, the CEO of Replicate Ministries. Vic, how are you doing?
Doing great, man. Underdressed compared to Colin, but I'm here nonetheless.
This is going to be the bit the whole episode, isn't it?
That's
Colin
it,
wore a
bro.
tie.
No, I'm
Yeah.
glad. Thank you. It gets pointed at me, so grateful it's on someone else today.
Need to know about Vic before we go into this interview is that Vic is the CEO of Replicate. Like I said, he's passionate about disciple making. He and Robbie Gowdy just released their new book a few weeks ago called The Movement Ready Church, which if you are a pastor or just a minister or lay member and you want to make disciples more effectively, that is the book for you. And so please go grab a copy, and we'll talk about it with Vic for a bit. But the number one thing you must know about Vic is that he is a master with the whiteboard. So he is a man of 1,000 markers. He is a man of 1,000 diagrams. And today, unfortunately, he can't show you any, but if we could, we would have him wow us with his skills. Right, Vic?
That's fair enough. And so,
Fine.
which
By the
I
book.
will say for skills, as we're on skills, I don't know if it's your normal voice, Rio, but I feel like you've amped up a radio voice. I feel like it's like you're leaning into it in a way that's it's good, man. I need to bring it to my podcast.
Well, my problem is I've got a voice for radio, but definitely also have a face for radio. So that's the
right.
only downside. All right. But Vic, as we get started, why don't you start? Just tell us a little about yourself, give us a little background, and also, too, kind of tie in how did you end up at Replicate?
Yeah, so I have been I'm from Louisiana originally, and North Louisiana. Went down to Baton Rouge, did ministry, and worked at a church there for 12 years. Unbelievable church that just was on the campus of LSU, and man, it was great. We were there, met my wife there, started our family there, and then I guess 6 years ago now, 2020, moved up to Nashville. We had. I think it's go back 2017. We met Robbie. We were trying to figure out discipleship in our church. It had worked in college ministry. We were trying to bring those principles to the adult space. And when we did, we stumbled across Replicate, Robbie, and went to Atlanta and immediately hit it off and started to get trained with those guys. And then eventually in 2020, he said, hey, we need some help up here, both at our church, but with the ministry. Would you come help other churches do what you're doing? And so that was 2020. Got there, and man, it's been a wild ride ever since. We're north of Nashville, and my family, we go to Long Hollow, where Robbie is our pastor. He's also on the board at Replicate now. And but my family, Sophie and I have been married for about 12 years, and then we have 3 kiddos. We have Barrett, who is about to turn 8. We have Lena, who is 6, and Allie Sage, who is 2.5. So right now, flag football and soccer is my world. And I love it. So I'm not a coach, but I'm like pseudo a coach. And so we're enjoying it.
Fantastic. I'm really happy to hear we got another soccer dad in here. I grew up playing soccer and I love it, and these two do not. So I get flack for it, but it's encouraging to hear.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, I don't want to give too much of a facade. I don't know if I'm a soccer guy, but my daughter plays soccer.
but that's the thing.
I
When your kids do it,
definitely
you
am
have to
more of
do
a
it as well.
football, but
Love
American football. But I mean, I respect it. I got no hate for it.
it.
And Vic, if I remember, you're a big Roll Tide fan, correct?
Yeah, absolutely not. And so, absolutely not. And big LSU fan. And so, yeah, the Baton Rouge years and just our family, it's ingrained deeply in us. I think my son hates Alabama more than he loves LSU. And so, which I have to think we have probably helped with that.
Yeah. Coach O's coming back. What's going to happen there?
Dude, I mean, look, I'm ignoring all the warning signs. I mean, two former addicts that feed off of one another that are in a high stress environment in South Louisiana. I don't think there's anything wrong that could happen there. I think it'll be smooth sailings. I am sure it will only be good things and no train wreck. That's what I'm telling myself today.
Man, if it results in a national championship, I think all the faithful over there in Baton Rouge are willing to trade it.
LSU will take roller coaster rides of like between what you can't be at LSU is irrelevant. You can go, you can have ups
Man.
and downs, you can make terrible decisions, you can have dumpster fires, but you better be on the front page. And which that's where we are. Seems like every day right now. So
That's what's going to happen. Well, hey, I want to ask a couple questions. So, as Rio said, you guys had a book that came out several weeks ago now. Tell us a little about the book. What's the heart behind it? Who's it for? Why should somebody read it?
yeah, we so at Replicate for years we've been doing helping churches around disciple making, and so most churches talk about discipleship, and it's they may even have a passion for it, but man, how do you actually create a plan for it? How do you see disciple making in a way that we get back to the way that Jesus modeled for in the early in his ministry, and then what the early church modeled for us? And so we've been doing that with churches since 2008. I believe over that 18 years, we're nearing about 4,000 churches that we've worked with in different capacities. And so what this book is this movement ready church is these were our learnings that we have had from that journey. After 18 years and just doing a bunch, like more than anything, we've learned the dumb tax. Like we learned how not to do things. And that's actually how the book starts. In 2020, we had been helping churches around discipleship. And after 12 years, we looked up and it was working in a lot of pockets in our network, but with many churches, it wasn't. And so we just started to ask the question, why isn't it working this time? And that question hit home for us because the church that it wasn't working in was ours. Robbie and I both at Long Hollow, as we're looking, it just wasn't working like it had worked in previous churches. And so it really had us step back and say, man, what are the essential elements that must be true for a church to see disciple making flourish like we see in the book of Acts? Like, what does that look like in each church's context, whether they are a typical church size or a mega church size? How do we help churches find those essential elements and create a disciple making movement? As we started to do that over the last 6 years, we started to see tremendous results in it. And so we put all of that in a book. And so this book is very much our learnings and from the last 6 years. And it's all getting back to those essential elements to help a church create a disciple making movement that fits their context.
So with that, because the goal is to see this work in churches filled a Great Commission. In the book, you're challenging some traditional frameworks that we think of discipleship. I remember back in 2021, we called it the red funnel and the blue funnel, and now it's the red circle and the blue square, not versus each
Mm.
other. So it's fun to see those ideas. But in your opinion, what would you say is probably the biggest barrier keeping churches from fulfilling the Great Commission? And with that, I'd even add, what do you think is the biggest barrier with pastors from them leading their churches to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is, well, let's have a little fun. We talked about it just a second ago. When I say the word football, what image comes to mind?
You losing again?
You losing again? There you go.
I mean, it's the
I
field goal, right? I mean, that's for me, like, that's the big difference between soccer. I think
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. There's that soccer element, right? I figured
Right.
we'd get that out of Daniel. And
Right.
so, what it is, football, wherever you are, you think OU, I think LSU, but then there's almost always somebody in the room that says some expression of a soccer ball. Similarly, like if you ask somebody, hey, when I say the word football, what image comes to your mind in Europe or South America? They're going to come back to what we call soccer. And all it is just, it's this idea that that shared language does not equal shared understanding.
Mhm.
We all can be saying something, but we have different pictures of what that looks like. And just because you say the same thing doesn't mean you mean the same thing. And when you mean different things, yet we're saying the same thing, it's a recipe for confusion and frustration. And I think when you look at the North American church and you look around discipleship, we're all in that moment right there. We're maybe saying the same things where we talk about discipleship, we talk about discipling, we even talk about, church growth and all these things, but we all have different images in our mind. We all have different pictures of what that looks like. And I think so often what that is that's your paradigm at work. The picture that you have in your mind is that paradigm and it's the way you see things. And most churches, the paradigm they have for what church success looks like is totally different than what actually we see Jesus and in the early scriptures. Because here's the thing is the reason if somebody picks soccer or Europe and South America, they're going to pick soccer as that picture it's because their past experiences shape their present expectations.
mm,
And so, if most of us have grown up in a version of church that maybe has been what I would say over programmed and under discipled, that in one where maybe that we've misunderstood that maturity is not just about information, but it's about application where we look and we see church members that the way that they think about following Jesus is just going on Sundays and Wednesdays and letting the staff do the disciple making, let staff do the work. All those paradigms, those mental models of church exist in pastors and our people. And so what happens is those mental models end up leading us to do church and continue to do church in ways that actually aren't helping us fulfill the Great Commission, that aren't helping us get back to Jesus' ways. And so a lot of times, that's why for us, one of the things that we talk about is we call it ministry myths. There's these myths, these beliefs that we have about ministry, these pictures that we have that we think are right, but they're actually hurting us. And so the biggest barriers for churches and is often that our pastors we have a faulty paradigm. We've believed myths about ministry that actually aren't rooted in what we see what Jesus models for us 2000 years ago, and it's actually holding us back from the disciple making we want to see.
think that's so good. I hear you also saying that there's probably some distraction in a lot of churches where they don't agree on the mission of the church, or they're trying to do a bunch of good things, but not the main thing. When you work with churches, is that where you try to get them thinking about, hey, what's the mission of the church and getting the priority corrected?
Yeah, absolutely. Part of it is just, I think one of the things we'll share a lot of times, church growth does not equal kingdom growth. Church
Mm,
growth does not equal kingdom growth. There's a way, and like often we can go and we can run church. And what happens is eventually, if we separate from the ways that Jesus is modeled, if we separate from the disciple making ways of Jesus, and we just begin to run church separate from what he modeled for us, eventually, even if the church is growing, I find pastor after pastor that just get to a point where they say, there has to be something more. There's got to be more than this. Even in high growth seasons, like I'll talk with pastors that are saying, "Man, we're bigger as a church and more successful than than I ever thought we would be." But I know there's more. Because what it is we've missed the mark. We've gotten so busy maybe trying to build a church from an event standpoint, and a Sunday's always coming, and we've gotten distracted. We've actually missed the heart of it, the purpose behind it. We're actually separating from the ways of Jesus in it. And so much of what we're doing is, hey, let's get back to what Jesus called us to do, to his command to go and make disciples. And let's, as we say, let's make his final words our church's first work. And so much of it is just what you said, like, how do we there's so many things, so many demands in ministry. Sunday's always coming. There's a sermon you have to preach. There's Wednesday nights. There's people like whether it's funerals or weddings, like, and there's all these things that tug at our attention. And it's so easy to let the tyranny of the urgent actually pull us away from doing the one thing that Jesus has called us to do, which was to make disciples. And so much is, like you said, not eliminating those distractions, but making sure that those don't prevent us from doing the one thing that's most important. And so I think what I love in what we do is at the end of a process, there's always, people will talk about, hey, we got better today. This is good. Like we're glad we have this new language, but there's always somebody who comes back and says, it's not that we just got better. We got back to what was right. We got back to what we should have been doing from the beginning. And I think that right there, any of those, we say it internally, we say what our process does, we call it ancient innovation. We introduce things that feel new. This is a new way of doing church. Oh, wow, that's going to be really new for us. But then it's actually it's really just a return to something old. It's a return to what Jesus modeled from the beginning. And so I think that's the beauty of, like, man, how do we eliminate all the distractions, the thing we could do, and get back to the one thing we must do?
Well, Vic, I know in Replicate right now, one of the big pushes we're doing is for the Kingdom Circle, which you talk about pretty extensively in the book. So, would you just kind of walk our listeners through who, like I said, they haven't read your book yet, they're not involved with Replicate? What is the Kingdom Circle, and why is that the big focus right now for Replicate?
Yeah, so Kingdom Circle here is a concept, especially over the last 6 years, man, that has just been massive for churches. And so here's what we learned. A couple of things. When COVID hit, COVID was a nationwide disciple making test for the local church. It asked the question, if you take away the church's programming, will its people own the mission? And by and large, the North American church, we flunked the test. And the people, as we looked, without the being able to get to the church, people didn't know what to do. And it wasn't just the fringe. It actually, I see it over and over. People tell me stories about how these were the deacons, these were elders, these were the people, even the people who were in the doors. Every time that the doors were open, they were there. The moment the doors weren't, they didn't know what to do. They were so dependent on the church and its programming and its structures. They didn't know how to own their faith. And so what that showed us was this idea of being a fully engaged church member actually could be fool's gold. We could think that it was success, but it wasn't. And so this is where Kingdom Circle really comes into play. For us, what we want to do is not just, people will get more involved serving. They're going to get more involved in small groups. But the goal for us, anytime we're working with churches, is how do we help every person in your church reach their Kingdom Circle? And this is what a Kingdom Circle is. Every person in your church is called to bring the kingdom of God into their circle of influence. And so whether they live, where they work, where they play, in the circle of influence that they have, God has called them as plan A to reach the people in their circle. And it's not their job to just invite them to church and let the pastor do the sermon. They're called to share their faith. They're called to disciple those in their circle of influence. And so for us, Kingdom Circle is about helping the people in our church take their social circle and make it a kingdom circle. And so that's really the concept behind it. And what I love, actually, it's so the book that I'm writing right now, it comes out next year, is Everyday Disciple Maker. And we just show how in the book of Acts, you can see how the gospel spread, how the church spread on the backs of everyday disciple makers. Peter, James, John, the main leaders there, they stayed in Jerusalem. And it says in Acts 8 that it was the everyday disciple makers that would spread and scatter across Judea and Samaria and the ends of the earth. And then if you go and look that kingdom circle concept, you can see it all play out all throughout the book of Acts. So in Acts 1:8, Jerusalem, that was Peter's kingdom circle. Samaria, that's Philip's kingdom circle. The ends of the earth, that's Paul. Barnabas, his kingdom circle, he was the son of encouragement. He always came alongside people. Lydia, hers was in Philippi. She would help be the house church there. And you can see it over and over all through the book of the Bible or through the book of Acts. You can see that the way that the early church reached everyone everywhere is because each member reached someone somewhere. And for us today, for the church to get back to the book of Acts, we have got to help our people reach their someone somewhere, their kingdom circle. And as our people reach their kingdom circle, that's how the movement begins.
Yeah. So let me ask you, and this, you might have just answered this question I'm about to ask, but I want to ask it anyway. So like me as a pastor, with just my church, 120 or so on a congregation, like
Yep.
what do you wish my church members understood better about discipleship? Like if there's
Yeah.
one area you wish every church member could just have a better understanding or better growth, what would
Mm.
you say like that would help as a whole?
Yeah. We talk about this in the next book coming out, and it's all around the idea. The reason that people don't make disciples isn't because they doubt Jesus. It's because they doubt themselves.
Yeah.
It's because they doubt themselves. People like the way that I think about it. Remember the Wizard of Oz? Remember from like the first one, not Wicked and all the new ones, but the Wizard of Oz that we all grew up with. At the very end of that movie, they get to Oz, and there's this whole scene where they tremble. Like they spend the whole movie trying to get to Oz so he can give them something that they don't have. And then they get there, and the smoke show happens, the booming voice, and they tremble. But then Toto the dog goes and pulls the curtain back, only to show that this extraordinary Oz is actually just an ordinary man. And then something else happens at that moment. They think that this journey has been hopeless. But what Oz goes and shows is that what they have been looking for, they've had all along. That the lion always had courage, that the Tin Man always had a brain, and he brings you back to the decisions that he made. That the Scarecrow has always had a heart, and so you think about. I think I got those wrong. The Tin Man had the heart. The Scarecrow, which one had a brain? There we go. And so, but that idea, that's the moment our people have to have around discipleship and disciple making. They have to realize that it isn't something extraordinary; it's actually something ordinary. And what they need to do it isn't something they have to go and get. It's actually been in them all along. And so I think the big hope that I would have for people around disciple making is to realize that, hey, God has called you to be a disciple maker. And what that is not, it is more than a command. It's a calling, meaning that it's not just duty. There's actually delight in it. When you start to realize that you were created for it, that's your purpose, that he has always planned for the everyday disciple maker to be how he changes the world, then you start to realize it's part of my identity. And then when you start to realize that God from the beginning of time has been creating you uniquely, Ephesians 2:10, and he has been creating you and preparing you to be able to do that. He's given you a calling. That's Ephesians 2:10. And he's given you a circle. You don't have to go and find new people. You don't have to go be like somebody else. Just be like you and know your calling and how God's wired you. And then go and invest in the people in your circle that are already there. And so I think that's a long answer to it, but at a very high level, I just want people to realize that God's put something in you and he's put people around you. You just have to step into it. And when you do, you'll actually step into something so fulfilling. And when you realize that, man, God has designed me from day one for this purpose.
Sorry, I muted myself. I, I'm I was like I started talking, couldn't get it out. If you're talking to on the other side of the coin, a new pastor, and you're giving him advice about getting his church ready and what he needs to do, not just like what his church needs to do. Sometimes that can be the young pastor's pitfall. Is he's like, man, if I get these people to just do X, everything be fine. But what does he need to do to get ready to be in a spot that he can lead his church into being movement ready?
Yeah, I love the first time. I love just what you said there, Colin. 'Cause I think so often we can look out the window and blame our people, and I mean, whether it's true or not, just like, how does that even help? Like, when people come up and gripe about consumer Christianity, I'm like, cool. Like, what are we going to do about this? Like, why don't we talk about what do we need to do? So, like, I love the ownership back on us of like, how do we change that? Where does it start in the book? We talk about the way that movements start. Every move of God starts by not moving. And it's counterintuitive, but come back to the early church movement in Acts 1:8, go to Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and the ends of the earth. But at the very beginning, it says, but wait until the power of the Holy Spirit comes upon you. And so the way that the early church starts was in prayer. It was in desperation. And similarly, watch Jesus and his miracles and how many places he pulls away and goes to prayer. Before he selects his disciples, we find him in Luke 6 in prayer. He's always, every movement, it's preceded by a season of not moving. And so another way that we say it is every season of movement is preceded by a season of readiness. There's something that God has to do in the leader before he can do something through them. There's a desperation that has to happen in the leader. There's a dependence that has to happen in the leader. We call that spiritual renewal. There's a spiritual renewal that has to happen, and that's what starts a movement. And so I think for the leader there, what is it if the way that we see a movement, it isn't from a whiteboard with markers and strategic planning, as much as I love all those things. It's on our face in prayer, asking for the Holy Spirit to move in our hearts and our people. And that's how a movement starts. So I think that's where it starts for that new leader.
So, Vic, with that, if I'm not mistaken, Robbie's publishing a book later in the year about that very thing of learning to wait on the voice of God, correct?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
there
I
you
think
go.
it
So
comes
you
out
got
September or October. I think it's wait and here. I think that's right. It's wait/here, but I'm not quite sure how to say it yet. And so
so for our
is it wait
listeners,
here?
Mhm. So for our listeners, that means you've got 3 books you're ordering within the next 12 months. You're ordering Movement Ready Church, you're ordering Robbie's book, and then you're ordering Vic's new book that comes out last year, correct? Or next
Next
year,
year. Yeah.
not last
Yeah.
year,
Yeah.
next year. Wow.
Yeah.
Next year.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Vic, we've loved having you on, and we know we're coming to a close. So let's end with this. Um, I've had the benefit of being a part of the Replicate Collective since 2021, I think, so the last 5 years. And that's been, as a young pastor, great for me. It's multi-fellowship between different denominations, different age groups of pastors. So if you've got 30 seconds or a minute to try to convince someone not involved to get involved, how would you sell them on it?
Let's see. Man, pressure's on. I would say, especially for the huddles, you can't lead a disciple making movement alone. Like, it's ministry is way too dang hard to do it alone. And so I think having those group of people that are able to come alongside you and to be able to keep you on track, because here's the thing about discipleship, about multiplication. People want the power of multiplication, but they won't settle for the pace of multiplication. And the pace of multiplication is slow and people are difficult. And so if you don't have those people, I'm reading through Exodus right now, and I just think about Aaron holding up Moses's arms so that they can win the battle. And there's just so many days where I need other pastors that hold my arms up and so that I can continue and stay in the game. If you don't have those people, you need to find those people. And that's a place that the Replicate Collective and those huddles, that's a great place to find find people who are trying to do the same things and will encourage you and push you to keep going on those days when it's hard.
And I'll just say a word in favor of that too. Like, it was so helpful for me as a young pastor trying to get our church movement ready and just be faithful, to have other people that I could bounce things off of, and they could objectively speak into it and tell me, yeah, you're probably a little off base there, or no, that's normal. We go through that every 6 months, you know.
Yeah.
It's just great to talk to other people.
That's right. I love it.
And what's cool is, so Colin was a part of it while he was at Calvary. I've been a part of it since 21, and Daniel's actually in the collective right now. And so I think all three of us can speak to, if you're not in a huddle, you need to get in one. You join the collective. It is hands down one of the best things you'll do for a ministry. Daniel, do you disagree with that? And if
I
so, we
agree.
have the CEO of Replicate to tell you why you're wrong.
There's a right line to complain, right?
That's
No, not
right.
at all.
That's fair.
No, it's been really good. I mean, Rio is talking about, I've known Rio for about 4 years now, and he has not once shut up about how much of a blessing Replicate is. And I've experienced it. Doing some of the Dream Disciple stuff, now in the huddle. I mean, the huddle is just fun, getting to talk with other pastors that are very similar. Um, their time in ministry and their experiences in church. And just a couple weeks ago, I was just talking through some of the struggles I was having and some of the direction I knew my church needed to go when it comes to focusing on prayer, focusing on mission work and evangelism. And so it's just really refreshing to be able to ask those guys, like, what works for you? What advice can you give me? And it was just great to have the perspective. It was a blessing. So I'm fully supportive of it. Highly recommend it.
There you go. Vic, when we're done with the recording, he'll tell you what he really thinks.
That's right. You can send that to me afterwards. You
Yeah,
can
but it's
send
okay.
all complaints to rio@replicate.org.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Vic, man, thank you so much for joining us
Yeah.
today. This has been a great episode. It's been great talking to you. And guys, we'll see you next time, where hopefully we won't wait 3 months for the next episode.
That's right.
So see
Hey,
y'all.
guys.
See y'all.